Groovin with Mike Adams and Chris Savory.
Now, I welcome any Elvis fans to write in and request their favourite records and their associate fan clubs. I know we have a very good fan club here in Signal Country. But if you'd like to write to Chris Savory and Mike Adams, care of Signal Radio, we'll try and feature some of the Elvis tracks you'd like to hear, rather than me have this self-indulgence every week where I pick the Elvis tracks I like. You see, I kind of like the tracks which have errors on and people chatting on, a bit like this one.
Stand by, we're rolling.
Here we go.
Beyond the Bend, take one.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Beyond the band. Wait a minute.
I wondered if that was shake anybody up. I'm falling in love tonight, take one.
Speakers wrong. It's the phones.
Okay, here we go. Take one.
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm falling in love.
We're still rolling.
I'm falling in love.
I'm falling in love tonight, take two.
1, 2, 3, 4.
No five?
No 5 because
Oh,
you get
right.
too close to your voice.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Still rolling. I'm falling in love tonight, take three.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm falling.
Wait 5. Count
1,
5 silently.
2, 3.
4, 5.
Right. I see what you mean.
Otherwise, the carryover in the room will get into it.
Okay.
Once again.
I'm falling in love tonight, take
Throw my head.
4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm falling in love.
Groovin with Mike Adams and Chris Savory.
Back in your seats for the next couple of hours, and here's some oldies and some goodies from me, Mike Adams, and my partner in crime.
With a horrible cold, Chris Savory. Hi.
Yes, we've got an action-packed afternoon for you today, and to kick off with, we start as usual with our Copycat Corner, and you may recall Elvis Presley's original version of Suspicion, which came on an album. But the single original of it was done by Terry Stafford, and this is an extremely collectible record, and it goes just like this. Yes, and that sounds very much like Elvis Presley, the Terry Stafford cover version on the single of Suspicion, and of course that was an Elvis hit for him back in the 70s as well. Chris, what goodies have we got lined up this afternoon? It's just coming up to 10 minutes past 4, and you're with Mike and Chris on Groovin.
To see what it was like, and we were talking to Mrs. Wilson from Nantwich, and she said, could we wish Jim Wilson and Dad, Ted Wilson, a happy birthday today on Sunday, April the 8th. No, we can't.
Well,
Sorry, that was from Gilly Ainsley and Alistair to Jim and Ted. No, we don't do birthday
that's father
requests.
and son having the same birthday.
That's right. That's
a bit of a coincidence, isn't it? Yes.
And something else, actually, because you know when Mike and I play with all these buttons and talk over the mic and all that, you probably think, oh, it's great, it must be easy just sitting there. Well, if you're tuned into BBC 2 on Monday, April the 9th, that's tomorrow, look in at 7:20 to Beryl Bainbridge's English Journey, and you just might see some of the things that we get up to, because it says that Signal Radio's first day is going to be featured. So that's BBC 2, 7:20 tomorrow. So you'll see just how easy it is.
Well, in fact, in front of me on the desk here, there must be somewhere in excess of 100 buttons, and occasionally, of course, one presses the wrong one, and boom. But once it's gone, as it were.
You haven't found the ejector seat button yet, have you?
One of our listeners has, that's for sure. I would like to mention to Ray Williams, who is a keen Elvis fan, who we met in Chester yesterday. Ray has got some fantastic Elvis records. And we're coming up to our Elvis spot now, because I always try and feature something of Elvis which is pretty rare. And Ray has an incredible Elvis collection, and it's nice to hear we have listeners in that part of the world. And we hope to hear more from you, Ray. It was interesting hearing about the records that you have of Elvis and the alternate takes, which include different unreleased versions of Rockahula Baby, Sandcastle's King of the Whole Wide World, No More, Can't Help Falling in Love, Guitar Man, Trouble, Little Egypt, and so on. And let's hope some of these are officially released in the foreseeable future. And still on Elvis, last week I mentioned in our programme Gillian, who lives in Shrewsbury, I'm never quite sure how to pronounce that, Chris. But she runs the Elvis fan club in Shropshire, in that area, and links up with the Telford fan club. And I know they are listening to the programme, and they would like a mention and a repeat of their phone number last week. So if you're in that part of Shropshire, do give Jill a call on Shrewsbury, I will say, 246 885. That's Shrewsbury 246 885. And if you're operating a fan club locally, we'd like to hear from you, and we'd like you to be our guest and talk about your particular star who you admire, and drop a line to us, Mike and Chris, care of Groovin, and that's Studio 257, Stoke Road, Stoke-on-Trent. And we're coming up to our Elvis spot, and I think it's only fair to say that this 25th birthday edition of Elvis Monthly is a must for any Elvis fan. It contains the first series of all the Elvis Monthlies in one magazine, and they are extremely collectible, the original Elvis Monthlies indeed, particularly the first and second series, which were slightly larger books than the later series. And for those of you that can't afford the fortune it would cost to buy the first series, it's interesting to read Albert Hand's information about Elvis Presley, and his enthusiasm comes through, and it's really magic. It's £1.75, which I had to pay for myself, and it was every penny well worth spending, I can tell you.
Must have been if you spent it.
Yeah, well, that's
Sorry, Mike.
That's the kind of friends I have.
It's just I don't see you buy things very often, you know. It's just a surprise.
Last time you opened a wallet, a moth came out, Chris. No, come on.
No, 3.
Anyway, we're going on to our Elvis spot, and as always, I try and feature. Had my nose fixed, now my mouth isn't working properly. A rare Elvis take, and one of my favourite themes from his movies was "Follow That Dream," and I found an outtake of "Follow That Dream," and I'll share it with you. Bit of banter from Elvis at the very beginning, as usual, of course.
Okay, let's go again.
Follow that dream.
Oh, marvellous, marvellous. Another track taken from the legendary Elvis Aaron Presley box set, which will cost you a small fortune to buy, regrettably. And as always, I'll be featuring the rarest Elvis tracks, not always the ones which were his biggest hits on this particular little spot. If you have any Elvis favourite you'd like us to play, drop us a line. And any soul favourite you'd like to hear from Chris or myself, drop to a line to Signal Radio, Studio 257, Stoke Road, Stoke-on-Trent. And taking it...
voice.
Yes.
Do you want the numbers on them or?
Just give me the record names.
Well, on one side is Too Much by Elvis Presley and the Jordanaires.
Right.
And the other side is Playing for Keeps, Elvis Presley with the Jordanaires.
And that's HMV Pop 330.
Yes.
All right. And that will be the blue label HMV 78.
Yes.
From 1957.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That.
What condition is the record in, Pauline?
Well, they're slightly scratched, but I have played them. They do play.
Right. Well, there is a misconception about Elvis 78s. The 50s Elvis 78 sold in their millions, and they're not worth as much as people would like to think. They are, in fact, worth about £2 or £3, that one, the Too Much Playing for Keeps, if it's in good condition. And when I say good, I mean it looks good, plays good, and there's not too much crattle about it. And what's the other Elvis record?
Well, that's Mystery Train on one side, and
Love Me.
Love Me on the other side.
Yeah, 295, HMV 295.
Right.
Again, that's the 78 version, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, Mystery Train is one of Elvis's best ever records by those who are in the know. And we in fact would say it's worth about 4 or 5, worth a little more than Too Much.
Yeah, about 4 or 5, Mike.
Yeah, about 4 or 5. And anything else, Pauline, while you're on?
No, I just got those two. I have got a load of Elvis records, but those are the two oldest I have got, you know.
Well, some of his later 78s are worth a lot more than the earlier ones. Mm-hmm. So if you dig out the black label RCAs, and you've got some late ones of those, they are worth a lot of money. And you've got a very good shop with 78s in Sandbach, haven't you? That Mrs. Kath Jones shop right by the Texaco garage.
Yeah.
It's a marvellous shop, one of the best record shops in England there.
Yeah.
Thanks for your call, Pauline.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Oh, dear Mike and Chris, he liked the alternate take of Follow That Dream we played, and he suggested that we played his latest flame from the EP collection, Volume 2. Now, we did feature this once before, but it's some while ago, so for all you Elvis fans, and from Chris and I, his latest flame, alternate take from the EP collection.
M2WW0860, take 1. Okay. Who?
And that, of course, was Elvis Presley, his latest flame, taken from the Collector's EP on that legendary set of EPs that came out by RCA last year. And that was the choice of Ray Williams up in Chester. Nice to hear from you, Ray, and we'll be in touch with you regarding your letter. And it's nice to hear from all of you, in fact. But in the army, he went on a incognito visit to Paris, and when he was over there, he did this interview. So I'm going to play that, and Elvis is going to tell us what his favourite record at that time was, of his own records, and I'll try and play that for you.
Hey, you could fall in love with Elvis, and you say you like to hear Jackie.
I just wonder who that duet was with there. That was taken from the legendary Jerry Lewis and the Duets album. And I don't really think that was Elvis Presley that was on that. I have a feeling it was Jimmy Ellis. And that album is still out and about. It fetches about £3 now, and it's called Duets, and it features the Save the Last Dance for Me, Sweet Little 16, I Love You Because, and so on. But it sounds awfully like Elvis, doesn't it? Who's this that's just walked?
That's a fiddle, then. Are you saying that's a fiddle?
Who's that? It's now open for your call. So join us on the programme. Chris is only too keen to work the switchboard. It's his first time, you know, so I just hope you get connected to us. The number is 416-444. This really is a test of nerves, folks, so ring in. And the number is 0782. With those oldies, they can be a year or two old, or they can be 25 years old. We want to hear from you. And 2 records each. And taking us there is, in fact, a very, very rare Elvis record. He was incognito in Paris, and he was interviewed by a German lady. Now, it leaves a little to be desired, this, but I've got to share with you. This is our signal first. So, Elvis Presley.
I like many different kinds of music. Some classical. There are some that I understand, some I do not understand. But naturally my best is rock and roll.
What do you think is your best song you ever sing?
Don't. A song called Don't.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Elvis, the teenagers wonder why you don't give any concert during your staying here in Germany.
Well, I will try to explain it to you. I was sent over here by the Army as a soldier, you understand? And it would not be fair to the other boys in the Army if I were traveling around and singing. I cannot be treated any different from the other boys. Do you understand?
Yes.
And I am very sorry that I am not over here as an entertainer, as a singer. But maybe I hope when I'm out of the Army someday I can come back to Europe on a tour, you know, and then I will travel around and as an entertainer in 8 or 9 more months.
Oh, that's Elvis Presley there with Don't. And you're listening to independent radio for Staffordshire, Cheshire and Shropshire on 257 in the medium wave, 1170 kHz and on 104.3 VHF stereo.
I think it went exceptionally well. All the staff and especially the kids around the ward seemed to really enjoy it. And of course, the main reason we went down there is because it's the Hospital Radio's open day, and everyone really appreciated us being there. So in answer to your question...
Yes.
Yes!
Well, that went on longer than we expected, and in the corner here, wearing the blue T-shirt, is in fact Dave Perry. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Good afternoon, Mike. Nice to be down here.
But he's wearing the same pair of trousers as me.
There's no...
You copycat!
There is no answer to that. Anyway, as we're gonna have a bit of sense later with Dave Walton, I think we'll kick off with, to my mind, the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley.
I'm gonna tell Aunt Mary about Uncle John. He claims he got the music, but he's having...
The King, Elvis Presley. And at the moment is doing my logging. Hello, David.
Hello, Michael. I'm so busy down here, you know, it's untrue.
I can see that, actually.
I know, I'm scribbling away, minding my own business, and I get interrupted, but it's nice to be here, Michael.
And we want to talk to Lee Finan, because, Lee, in fact, you have got for us a further selection.
Oh, yes, I have indeed, but don't interrupt me, Mike. I mean, I'm reading the Guinness Book.
What are you guys doing?
It's only because he hasn't got the same trousers that we've got on.
I know, he's jealous because he's got the tatty pair of jeans on.
I know. Ragtaggle and
just because he's
bobtails.
presenting a programme, he thinks he can interrupt us all the time. Look, just
get
on and play
hang on. What are the books you're reading? Let's see, what are the books you got there?
I'm reading the 500 number one hits from the Guinness Book of and the Guinness Book of British Hit Singles.
I see.
By Joe and Tim Rice, Paul Gambaccini and Mike Reid.
Mind you, his comic is the Beano inside, isn't it? You like it?
It's the dandy, actually.
You know, I was told about you from Chris, and he said to me that...
Oh, no, you wasn't told the truth, was you?
Yeah, he said that... don't have Lee round for lunch. Because, he said, because if you have Lee round for lunch, he'll eat you at a house at home. and it's true.
Shall we explain that I came round to your house for lunch today after several weeks of putting off, and actually came round today.
Had soup in the basket?
And
anyway,
the only problem, it leaked all over the car. But I would like to say officially on Signal Radio, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Put it on the line. There's many tracks that all of us remember from those days, but let's do Party.
Some people like to rock, some people like to roll, but moving and the grooving goes.
The King, Elvis Presley, and Party, taken from the Loving You soundtrack, and the choice of Kenwood, who is our special guest this afternoon on Groovin, and why Chris Savory does the moving. You were just saying while we were playing Party that you've actually been around Elvis Presley's house. How did that come about?
Well, basically, having travelled a lot in the States, I was flying down from LaGuardia down to Atlanta on Eastern Airlines jet, and we got forced down because of engine problems into Memphis, Tennessee. I simply got out of the car and was picked up by a cabbie to take me to the Holiday Inn in Memphis.
Right.
And he said, "How are you doing, Massey? You like to go around and see Elvis Presley's house?" And I said, "Yes, I'd love to do that, eh?" And that's how I went round to Elvis's house. And then I came home from Chicago about 10 days later, and the guy died of a heart attack after all those years of singing his music.
Good grief. I mean, was Elvis in residence when you went round? Or did
I
you
don't know.
Were you just viewing it from the outside?
From the outside, with the big wrought iron gates where the music and the guitars are all over the gates.
This would be sometime July 77 then?
77, that's quite right, yeah.
The year Elvis died.
That's right. And after singing all those years Elvis music,
yeah, incredible.
And tried to emanate it, go up there by accident, it was phenomenal, really.
Which is David. David, are you there? David Walton.
Yes, I'm here, Mike.
And David, in fact, won't need much of an introduction to many of you because you are the secretary of the local Elvis Presley fan club, am I right?
That's correct.
And we put you a bit on the spot today because I'm asking you what your favourite Elvis record is.
Yeah.
And I love doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, you know. Magic.
How long have you been an Elvis fan?
Since Heartbreak Hotel, so you say 55, 56, whichever you want to say.
Well, that goes back a lot. That goes back further than me, because my first Elvis record was, well, as you probably know, Jailhouse Rock. It was 88.
Well, you look a lot younger than me, anyway.
Well, tell us a bit about your fan club, as it were. It's in the Signal area, and what kind of promotions and functions do you have coming up?
Well, it mainly started seriously when Elvis died, because there were a lot of people in the 40s age bracket who wanted to be able to go to functions and enjoy the music that they enjoyed whilst they were courting. And at the local discos, unfortunately, they felt, you know, rather lost.
Right.
With the flashing lights and the whiz kids that are around today. So I did a tribute show with Freddie Starr at Jolly's to raise some money for the Hayward Hospital. And the response from that show, with mail and attendance, twisted my arm into forming the Elvis Remembrance Society for Stoke-on-Trent.
Great, great. I mean, have you got a phone number where you know, if you want to join the Elvis Presley fan club around here, where they can reach you, Dave?
Yeah, it's Stoke-on-Trent, 721 121.
721-121. Just to remind you are listening to Signal Radio, broadcasting on 257 on the medium wave, 1170 kilohertz on 104.3 in VHF. And as usual, we will be having a phone in. I haven't given it a plug this afternoon because I'm doing it alone, so a little bit scared and he's knocking under the desk. But our number is, as always, 416-444, 416-444, and the code is 0782 if you live outside of Stoke, and the number 416-444. All those oldies, there can be Elvis records, and they can be, well, anything up to 2 years ago, back to 1956, and I'll have a crack at telling you what they're worth and how you can sell them. Anyway, you've been doing this now since 1977 as such, then, would it be?
Promoting the Elvis Remembrance Society,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, have you been over to Memphis yourself or not?
No, unfortunately, we have one big obstacle, which is my wife, who won't fly.
Very difficult.
Very, very problematic, yes.
Yeah, I know the problem because I too don't like flying. I used to fly a lot and I've been to the States and so forth, and I had a very nasty flying experience, and it's really, I mean, I get on there, I'm legless.
No.
They carry me on, I mean, I could fly without the plane. You know. Anyway, let's have a bit of the King, and this one you brought in is in fact...
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think it sums up what a lot of the rockers of today would say was the true Elvis, you know, and I tried to find something that's not plugged on every radio station, but
Right.
still early Elvis.
And it's called?
One-Sided Love Affair.
Who else but Elvis Presley ain't no one-sided love affair, and that is taken from a Date with Elvis, which is now very hard to find in its original version, but it's fairly easy to find on the reissued version. And I'm talking to my very special guest this afternoon, which is Dave Walton, who is in fact the secretary of the local Elvis Presley Appreciation Fan Club, and he just handed something to me, which is you're organising a charity evening of nostalgia, is that right?
Yeah.
Great. And that's taking place at the Florence Colliery at Lightwood Road, Longton. And I see, well, that's really a pleasant surprise that you've got the Conspirators on, because we featured the Spiritors the other week.
That's right, last Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I mean that record was really great.
Yeah, very, very, very good group. Top 60s group, I would say, in the Potteries at the moment.
And they're starring local top group, the Conspirators, boom, boom. Also a rock and roll disco, and a making of nostalgia. The money's going to a good cause, and your tickets are available from the Florence Club or the Longton Working Men's Club. I'm sure if you phone up Dave on 721121, that's 721121, that's Stoke-on-Trent, he'll be only too pleased to help you out with the tickets. The tickets are £1 each, and also there's the Memphis Sound and a rock and roll disco. It's coming up to 3 minutes to 5 o'clock. Just to say, our lines will be opening about 3 or 4 minutes from now. If you want to fire questions on rock and roll or soul music or any 60s or 70s music, give us a call now on 0782 416 444. And taking us to the news, here's in fact, of course, Elvis Presley, the King, and your second choice today is in fact one that very rarely gets played, and happens to be one of my all-time favourites, which is when Elvis was doing It's Now or Never and Surrender and so forth. He also did this one, which I felt should have been released, and you can introduce it for us.
Yeah, it's Santa Lucia, and it shows the other side of Elvis, not just a rocking man.
Yes, that was, of course, the King, Santa Lucia. Broadcasting on 257 on the medium wave and 104.3 VHF.
Signal Radio News. The 5 o'clock news, this is Des Fahy.
Stamped on my chest here, and he's very kindly given me a couple of tickets here to the charity evening of nostalgia. That's this Friday the 4th of May at Florence Colliery and at Lightwood Road, Longton. I'll tell you what we'll do as a bit of fun. If you've got any oldies at home, a couple of records you like to have a go at valuation, if you ring in now on 416 444, and ideally like an Elvis question, right, because I've got Dave here as well. I'd like to sort of bounce something off him, you see. Give us a call now on 0782 if you're outside of Stoke, 416 444, and the first caller will get 2 free tickets to a charity evening of nostalgia. That can't be too bad. But this next record, in fact, reminds me of tomorrow. It sums up exactly what my feelings are about Mañana. Nostalgia from our friend Dave Walton. And if you'd like to come in to the studio and collect them, we'll chat off air and arrange it with you, okay?
Yep.
Right, fire away. What's your questions?
I've got an original 78 of Heartbreak Hotel, his Master's Voice label, in very good condition. I'd like to know what it's worth.
Right. It's worth about £3 to £4. It's not one of Elvis's rarest 78s. As I've said previously, the later the 78 with Elvis Presley, the more valuable it is. The old H&V 78s were prolific, the number of those sold. Millions in the United Kingdom. But in the early 60s, in fact, very few sold, and they issued them right up to Wooden Heart, would you believe? I know there was a gentleman in Kidsgrove that has actually a Wooden Heart on 78, which is very rare. But the Heartbreak Hotel, of course, back in 1956, when that first came out, most people did buy the 78s, not the 45s. So, anything else there, Justin?
No, it's just that.
You haven't got any other records you want to fire at me?
No.
Otherwise, I'm going to have to let these two terrors in, you see, Dave Perry and Lee Finan at the studio. And they're at the bait, you see, because Chris Savory's away, Justin. Yeah. And they're ganging up on me in the studio here. I think they're cutting up the phones. Anyway, stay on the line. We're going to play a record, and it's going to be the bit of the Supremes, and I'll chat to you off air and arrange about the tickets, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your call, Justin.
Elvis Costello, is that?
No, well, you know I like Elvis Costello very much, but at this time we always talk about Elvis Presley, the Elvis spot, and as our Elvis listeners regularly know, Elvis, in fact, has got a new single out. It's called The Green, Green Grass of Home. Now, one or two of you who we met in Macclesfield yesterday, and it was nice to meet so many of you and, in fact, have a chit-chat.
It's great. Really good
and get some feedback from you. And we hope to see some of you a week this Saturday at Stoke, where there's a record fair at Stoke, which Chris will be talking about, I'm sure, shortly. But it was nice to meet you sort of person to person. If you want to chat to us person to person, we'd love to hear from you. It's 416-444. It is your show. We want to hear from you about your record collection, about your swaps, about the records you like valuing. And if you start dialing now, we'll talk to you after the 5 o'clock news. But taking us to there is Elvis's new single, but I've turned it over because I'm playing the B-side. Release Me, to me, is a better track than The Green, Green Grass of Home, but I'm sure many of you will disagree with me. But here is the king, Elvis Presley. And that, of course, was Elvis Presley, his new single, the B-side Release Me, and also the Solitaire on it as well.
Right, and just after the news, we've got our phone in, don't forget. But at the moment, you're listening to independent radio for Staffordshire, Cheshire and Shropshire, broadcasting on 257 metres in the medium wave, 1170 kilohertz, and on 104.3 stereo VHF.
Elvis, and we really must bring you down on our programme, Ray, and have a good chat to you. We have as our very special guest, who will be joining us shortly after the news, Todd Slaughter, who is the International Secretary of the Elvis Presley Appreciation Society and also the editor of Elvis Monthly. And if you have any questions you'd like to ask Todd, please feel free to join us on our phone in, which is on 416-444. If you're outside the Signal area, the code is 0782. You are listening to the radio station Signal on 257 on the medium wave and 1170 kilohertz on 104.3 VHF.
5 o'clock. And if you've got any phone calls about Elvis Presley records, memorabilia, books, things like chewing gum, cards of Elvis and all sorts of things, do phone in, and we'll try and help you out. That'll be Mike, myself and Todd. Afternoon with myself, Chris Savory and Mike Adams, and we'll be taking a few more phone calls in just a moment. But now comes the time to introduce our very, very special guest for the afternoon, Todd Slaughter from the, am I right, the official Elvis Presley fan club.
That's right, yeah.
That's right. Why the word official? Are there lots of unofficial fan clubs?
Well, there are one or two. The word official, I think, came when the fan club was registered with the Board of Trade in 1957, and it's stuck ever since.
And you've been doing it since 57?
No. I've been doing it since 67.
Yeah. Since 67, because I know that you were involved in the Henor Record Centre at one time, I believe. Was that right? The record shop, which I remember used to see in the 60s, was it? In Record Mirror?
Yeah, I wasn't there then. I wasn't there. I never arrived until about, I think, 1974, 75.
Yeah. And how did you get involved then with the Elvis Presley fan club?
Oh dear. When I first left school, I went to work for the Leicester Waterworks, and there was an Elvis nut who sat at the back of me, with my desk. And he used to drive me mad about talking about Elvis, and it was always a bug that Elvis Presley would never appear in Britain. So I thought it would be rather nice if Elvis appeared on television, but television of a special nature. At the time, they'd just launched a communication satellite, a thing called Telstar.
Oh yeah.
And I thought it was a good idea that you could have live Elvis Presley from the States by satellite. And I discussed this with a gentleman called Jimmy Savile, and we got together a petition of 250,000 signatures for Elvis to appear on satellite. And Colonel Parker said that he hadn't got an agent on the moon, and if the signal should go there by mistake, he couldn't get any money for royalties. And he turned the suggestion down, which was a bit sad, because within about 4 weeks of turning it down, and there was an offer from a British television company and an American one to do it, the first real satellite, I think called Early Bird, was launched, which linked Britain and the United States 24 hours a day. And of course the Beatles did the very first round-the-world telecast with
That's
All
right.
You Need Is Love.
I mean, were you an Elvis fan at school, or was it something that this friend of yours behind you sort of got you into Presley, or not?
I didn't really get involved in music until I'd left school. I mean, I remember Hound Dog and All Shook Up and things, but it wasn't until probably 1963 that I took a real serious interest in all kinds of music.
Right. The Elvis Monthly magazine is the longest running sort of fan magazine in Britain, isn't it? As such, was it
Yes, it is.
1950? End of October, November '59 when it first appeared.
Well, it's 25 years old this Christmas.
Right.
So it's been around a long time.
What? Because I'm a dedicated Elvis fan and have been since 1958. But sometimes a lot of the critics of Elvis fans, because to me he was the guy who put country music and blues music and soul music and all various kinds of music together and made what became popular music. There were other people around at the same time, and I know there were black artists doing similar things, but it really was, he was the catalyst that restarted the pop industry as we know it now in the 80s. And but the criticism one really gets towards Presley is often the fringe, the element fringe, which in fact the clones of Elvis, you might say, who in fact I get people saying, well, these people just are freaks, and I said, well, the majority of Elvis fans are very sincere in believing that Elvis had the great voice, a good personality, etc., and would admit that some of his 60s material, particularly the middle 60s, lacked a lot of the of what his pre-army recordings had. But I mean, I just wonder how you felt about that, Todd.
Well, I suppose Elvis fans over the years have had a lot to put up with. If they've been a dedicated, loyal fan, they've always been criticised because Elvis never toured outside the States, and of course never will do now. Soon after Elvis Presley died, there was a tremendous amount of bad publicity about an artist that Elvis Presley fans in general had worshipped for years, and had always considered Elvis to be the clean-cut personality.
Right.
And they had to take it again. And of course, after Elvis died, there were thousands of fans that really came out of the woodwork. And along with those fans came a lot of people, I guess, who were latching on to something else to do in their life. And Elvis appeared in 1978 to them, and it seemed rather fashionable to be part of it. And with that crowd, we had a lot of oddities. And that's when the cloning started, and the occasional piece of surgery. But it was only very occasional, and to be fair, it was blown up by the media more than it actually happened. I don't think I've ever met anybody that's had Elvis fans that have had any surgery. There's one or two that should have done, but...
Anyway, what we asked you to do was bring one or two of your own records along and talk about the Elvis music you liked. And we want to talk to you shortly about your meetings with Elvis and how you in fact got on with him and what kind of person you found him out to be. But the first track you brought us is taken from, surprisingly, an album called Elvis Today. Can you tell me any reason why you've chosen this album?
There's a lot of criticism delivered at Elvis, particularly during the last 2 or 3 years of his life, because, amazingly so, he never went into a recording studio much. And this was one of his last real studio visits, when he recorded a song called Susan When She Tried. And it's a very good record, one that you won't normally hear.
Right, let's hear Susan When She Tried by The King.
It's Elvis Presley there, and on Grooving this afternoon with myself, I nearly said with myself, Mike. Goodness me, with myself, Chris Savory and Mike Adams. We've got Todd Slaughter, but we also said we'd have some phone-ins this afternoon as usual.
Slaughter. And I have actually on the deck here, Todd, a Elvis record which I put on, which is called Elvis in Demand. And I do know that you were responsible for putting this album together with all the fan club, wasn't it?
Yes, we were. Just prior to Elvis's death, Elvis in Britain wasn't having too much success chart-wise. And his record company, RCA, were amenable at that time to putting together a compilation. We did this, and they picked Suspicion off the album as a single, and of course it was one of the singles to chart. I think you said it was number 11. I think you're probably right.
I didn't check up on it, but I think it went to number 11. I mean, that was a great record. It came originally. It was issued in '62 on the Potluck album. You were saying when we were just off air that there is an Elvis in Demand Volume 2. At least the ideas for Volume 2 is there, but unfortunately, it isn't out.
No, it never happened, and surprisingly, this album itself, Demand Volume 1, sold, I think, 111,000 copies. It was very successful. The tracks generally, or the idea for the series, was to choose tracks of oddity value. Certain releases that were issued in, say, Italy or Germany, might have had different stereo tracks missing when they finally did the mix.
It Hurts Me came to mind.
It Hurts Me was a particular one, where the Jordanaires vocal bit was missing off altogether. And of course there are probably about 20 or 30 of these oddities around the world, and the idea was to get them together and put them out on a series. Volume 1 did that. Volume 2 is, I can't remember what's on it now because it's 4 years since we put the compilation together. The tapes are all there, the album's ready to release, but the company's never done anything about it.
I mean, with the RCA, I know a lot of Elvis fans collect bootlegs, and because they can't obtain the records of Elvis, there's obviously no new material coming out. It's just repackaged and repackaged and repackaged again. And so there are lots of Elvis recordings on bootleg material, that's illegal recordings, basically, or taken live, when he did live performances, and then packaged together and sold for very high prices, normally £10, £15 or £20 an album. And to me, being an Elvis fan, I have actually time to time purchased these, though I've never sold them. And I feel it's very wrong in a way that they should be that expensive, and B, that the fans should have to go to that way to obtain that kind of material. Why doesn't if in fact they're selling through that way, why aren't they released legally, and why can't we buy them for £5?
I think if you look back at the history of Elvis bootlegs, and I also have never sold them, the majority of them, or at least the movie soundtracks, came out of the back door of a recording company in Los Angeles that did all the overdubs for Elvis in the movie time. There was a considerable amount of tapes that came out of one of the American television company from Elvis's '68 special, and the rest have just come out the back door of the record company itself. Now the problem is, in many cases, these are the masters that have gone. And once the masters have gone out of the company, then the record company itself doesn't have them. Also, in many cases, the record company, and this is to be fair to RCA, doesn't have the rights to release everything with Elvis Presley's voice on. To give you some idea, when Elvis Presley went into a recording studio, the musicians were paid for one release. Elvis was paid for one release of a certain song. If there were 3 or 4, or in sometimes 20 or 30 versions of that song, whilst the tapes are probably still in the can, the legal machinery has never been cleared for release. Now, obviously, this is a wonderful excuse to stop any company doing anything.
Right.
What's been the big surprise to me is that it's now 7 years since Elvis Presley died. In those 7 years, it would have made sense for the legal beagles to get off the chairs and actually do something about tracking down the people who could give the authorization to release this material, because it's what Elvis Presley fans want.
Well, he could keep his music alive.
Of course, and because RCA never did this, then there was a golden opportunity for the bootleggers to do it, and that's what they did do. There have been other reasons too. I think in the last 2 or 3 years, the litigation that's taken place between Colonel Parker, Elvis Presley Enterprises, the Elvis estate, and the record company itself, that's been going on for such a long time that it was probably in no one's interest to actually have too much success with Elvis Presley product, because all you do then is increase the value of the artist's worth to the people who still have a share in that artist, and then out-of-court settlements would have been so high that the product as a product would have been probably not worth bidding against.
But at the end of the day, it's the public. It's the public, in fact, pay, and it's the public that put these people on the pedestals or make whoever they are and make them what they are. And with Elvis, it was very much his music. And to me, it's tragic, all this wangling, and 7 years has gone by, and we know the material's there, and new material, but we are suspicious that the material will eventually, or hopefully, will be released. But we'll hear a bit of Elvis with a naturally suspicion.
This afternoon, besides myself and Mike, we've got Todd Slaughter from the official Elvis Presley Appreciation Society, and I've got a question, Todd. I'd like to ask you about running a fan club appreciation society. What does it involve? Especially, these days, Elvis has been dead, 7 years now. Isn't it rather hard to find anything new that one can put in a magazine or fan club letter?
Not for Elvis Presley, because he was around for a long time.
Yeah.
There are certain aspects of his career that are always being debated and discussed. And of course, when you've got a fan club like ours with 20,000 members, it's a very active club anyway. So the social side of our organisation is probably a lot different to the general run-of-the-mill fan club. Also, we're becoming probably a collectors' club in many senses of the word. So we're all singing, all dancing. We do a bit of everything, and but we're able to do it because we're so big. Now, how you would start from scratch, I don't know. It must be very difficult. Principally, I would say to anybody who wanted to start a fan club for an active act, is that you must get the support of the record company and money from the record company, and if possible, if it's a British artist, money from the artist. Because if the artist wants a good fan club, then I think he ought to be prepared to pay for it. Other than that, you're going to start off very cheap and cheerful, and it's going to look very amateurish. And when you're asking for money from people of £2, £3, £4, they're going to expect £2 or £3, £4 worth of goods back in return. So I think you need the thing to look as professional as possible, and the only way to do that is to have income from the start, and that has to come from the act or the record company or the act's manager.
So if I send off money to you, what's it going to cost me, and what am I going to get for my money?
Well, we're very cheap. The Elvis Presley fan club has been increased now from just recently to £3 a year. You'll get 6 full-colour magazines, membership card, and various things dispatched to you throughout the year. It's incredibly cheap. Most fan clubs work out at between £6 and £8 now, and you probably don't get as good a deal as you would get with us, but we can do it because we've got a lot of members.
20,000. It's
The Elvis
incredible,
fan club,
isn't it?
But it's fair to say, around here there's Dave and Kath Walton run an Elvis fan club, which I know not affiliated to your fan club, and that's a very good fan club indeed. One doesn't need always to be very big and large to run a fan club, though, surely.
No, not at all. You don't. But it all depends on what services your members want. We take 200 or 300 people to the States every year. We've just done a holiday camp festival, holiday village, shall I say, where we had 1,200 people. We're doing the same thing again in the autumn. We're a very active organisation. If you're talking of a collector's club in a small area, then a duplicated news sheet is probably all that you do require. But if you're going to be the national fan club for any artist, then you need financial support.
Right. So, in your particular fan club, has it been financed by the record company or what? Originally?
No, never. No, it's always because it's been Elvis Presley. There's always been enough members in the club to pay the bills.
Right.
But other fan clubs I know of, that is not the case.
Did you get much cooperation? I remember Albert Hand. I met Albert, a great chap, and to me, still a major figurehead in most Elvis fans' minds. I remember his book called A Century of Elvis, which was I think the first thing he ever put pen to paper with that book. And he started the Elvis Monthly, of course, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
25 years ago. Did you get much cooperation in the early days? I know you weren't involved in the early days, but you've obviously got access to the archives there from America. Did you find that Elvis and Tom Parker and Diskin and was it Tom Diskin and those people over there helpful to your operation or not? Or was it cap in hand a bit?
Yeah, very much, very very cap in hand. But then again, I guess the British fans got treated better than any other fan club anywhere else in the world. But having said that, we didn't get a deal.
Right.
They were very reluctant. Colonel Parker's attitude was that if we do it for you, we have to do it for everyone. But of course the problem was they did it for no one and nobody got anything. It's all part of being Elvis Presley.
Right.
You know, it was frustrating when he was alive. It's just as frustrating for the Elvis fans now that he's not alive.
You met Elvis, didn't you?
Yeah.
How many times did you meet him?
3 times.
Yeah. I mean, did he have long chats or were they very brief?
First 2 times very brief. I think the last time I probably spent an hour with him, but it was in a very unreal situation. Elvis was getting off an aeroplane and I was being filmed receiving an award from him for a CBS television documentary. The film, in actual fact, was never included in the documentary because Elvis Presley died just 6 weeks after that.
Right.
He was about to perform his last concert. I mean, the poor guy was very ill. He could hardly see. He couldn't walk very well. And I was quite frightened. It was very eerie, very strange.
I mean, was it very obvious to you how bad a condition he was in?
Well, I've told the story many times. You have to be careful when you keep telling stories, you know, because if you're not careful, you exaggerate or elaborate on them. But the television film crew, the American crew, said to me, if you get near Elvis, and we haven't been able to get near him, we've been kept at arm's length, but if you get near him, have a look at him, because we reckon he's got about 6 months to live, and as it happened, it was 6 weeks. So there was a general feeling around the people outside that Elvis was seriously ill. Why the people on the inside never realised it, I don't know.
It seems crazy because one looks at the pictures of him and he looks obviously ill and needs medical assistance. And, I mean, millions of fans, and it's obvious to everybody, but the very circle he's surrounded by, you know, his mafia or whatever, you know, he isn't getting that help, and it just seems so tragic.
Well, I think that says a lot about the people that were near him.
But the king is always killed by his courtiers.
Of course, yeah. And, well, I can't pass any comment on that, can I?
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't say yeah or nay to that then.
Oh, the people that surrounded Elvis Presley, sadly, were not the calibre of people that ought to have surrounded Elvis Presley. But you know, if you've known pop stars, and I'm sure you have, they always seem to surround themselves with oddities and lunatics and nutters. I guess they get the gophers that they require, and anyone with a lot of dignity probably wouldn't do that kind of work. I'm sure that must be the case.
Or maybe it's reflective glory in some cases.
I'm not so sure.
I mean, the thing is...
within the shadow, in the footsteps of,
That's
yes.
right.
Yes.
They must... I mean, reading some of the books like Elvis, What Happened and so forth, I mean, reading that book, which was published just prior to Elvis's death, I mean, it seemed to be a lot going for the people who were around him, seemed to be doing quite well out of the situation.
I think financially they didn't do very well, but as far as
living...
wine, women and song and everything else was wonderful.
Yeah.
One of the things I was going to ask, because you said that, you know, we talked about cooperation from record companies and people like Colonel Parker and the people that surrounded Elvis. I've always got the impression he was, in many ways, overprotected and probably unaware of a lot of what went on. Did you ever manage, as a society, to get through direct to Elvis? Did he ever send you anything personally, or was it always vetted? Do you know what I mean? Always vetted by Parker or any of his sidekicks.
Thousands of Elvis Presley fans around the world received letters or autographs from Elvis during his lifetime. A lot more than you would think.
Yeah.
But the letters that were written to Elvis's home, Graceland, generally, although it took a long period of time, were acknowledged in some way. And even if it was only in the form of an autograph, fans got something back. If you wrote to Elvis care of Colonel Parker's office or the record company, of course, it was 1,000,000 to 1 chance that that correspondence ever got through. But Elvis, it's said, did take an interest in the correspondence that he received.
So it's very obliging, really.
Yes, it's a mysterious... Elvis Presley's life and his contacts with his fans were quite different to what a normal run-of-the-mill star put up with.
And one thinks of Cliff Richard, and I can't help but think the way he's lived his life, and he's sort of mixed with his... He lives in Oregon, he can walk down the street, and the way he's got out and about. and it's sort of switched on. I mean, had Elvis sort of kind of got out of that protected area he was in and gone out and about, and because I mean Cliff Richard is a big star. I mean,
yes, of course. And so, I mean, let's face it. When I think the Beatles proved that Paul McCartney in the '60s could walk down Carnaby Street, and whilst he would get mobbed, I mean, he never got killed.
No.
Having said that, of course, John Lennon did, but in a different situation.
The only pop star ever to be assassinated.
But of course, Elvis became a recluse right from the start, and physically, mentally, it must have been very difficult to break that mould.
Anyway, we'll just in fact listen to a little bit of the King's voice, and it's taken from the Today album, and of course it's your choice, Elvis. And that, of course, was Elvis Presley, and that was Fairy Tale, taken again from the Today album that Todd's kindly brought in. We'll be talking to Todd again shortly. It's 10 minutes to 6 o'clock. You listen to Signal Radio. This is Groovin with me, Mike Adams, and Chris Savory.
With myself, Chris, and Mike and Todd. And Todd, we've talked about various things about Elvis, and as we've said, I think we agree sometimes he put out some really good stuff and sometimes some bad stuff. But on the good stuff that he put out, what would you say are your most favourite track or tracks of all time?
I always say "Girl and My Best Friend."
Oh, yeah.
It's not rock and roll, but it's good pop.
Yeah,
I think that's a lot of rock and roll fans don't consider Elvis to be a rock and roll artist, because Elvis wasn't just a rock and roll artist. He was a communicator, a pop music communicator.
Yeah. Well, he did so much, didn't he? I mean, I've even seen Elvis Presley releases in the States in the top 5 of the rhythm and blues charts.
Yeah.
So he to me, he covered all sorts.
Yeah, the amount of product that Elvis put out and the variance of it was absolutely amazing.
Got some good news there that our sweet has just arrived from dinner.
And Lee Chatterbox, in fact, was looking very pale indeed outside there. In fact, he's looking very pale. He's had his sweet, obviously. Anyway, what I wanted to ask you, Todd, was what is left to be released as a single?